What about the weak anthropic principle? Let me define it first before we destroy it, okay? Definition. This is also a Richard Dawkins approach. It was also the view of Brandon Carter, who was one of the pioneers of fine-tuning. How do you explain it? Here's how. If the laws and constants and initial conditions in our universe weren't finely tuned to permit life, would you be surprised about it? No? You'd be dead? Yeah, well, I guess then we have to be viewing a life-permitting universe with finely tuned constants and laws and initial conditions. Because if it wasn't here, then you'd be dead. And if you were dead, then you wouldn't be observing this phenomenon. Or if fine-tuning didn't occur, we'd be dead. So it must have happened, or we wouldn't be here. Paul Davies, in one of his books, puts it this way. He says, how many of your distant, direct ancestors died childless? Oh, it's such an incredible improbability that I'm here. Well, if you weren't here, you wouldn't be surprised about it. So quit it, right? That's the argument. The weak anthropic principle. Now, there's another form called the strong anthropic principle, which says that human observers created the universe. That is wacky. Is one person, it's the SAP. One physicist called it the CRAP. The credulous, ridiculous anthropic principle, I think is what he called it. The weak anthropic principle says, if the miraculous didn't happen or whatever, then you wouldn't be here to be surprised about it. Therefore, it must have happened. Then there's just the anthropic principle, which says we're viewing a universe that is allowing us to exist, and that's kind of a neutral term. But the weak and the strong are the ones that are in play here. Here's Martin Rees in his book, Just Six Numbers. He says, many scientists take this line, the weak anthropic principle. Well, we wouldn't be here to be surprised about it. He says, but it certainly leaves me unsatisfied. Yeah, he's right about that. And here's why. Let me pause before we go any further. This is not a scientific explanation, is it? What kind of explanation is this? Philosophical. It's an interpretation of the science, not science. So that's fair if they want to give a philosophical interpretation, but don't say that we're doing the science and you're doing theology. We're both trying to interpret the data. Here's the first problem with this view. It confuses a necessary condition with a causal explanation. So, what does that mean? Is it necessary for me to be alive to be surprised at the fine-tuning? Oh yeah, if I was dead, I wouldn't be looking at it. But is that a causal explanation of the fine-tuning? No, of course I need to be a human observer to observe it, but that doesn't explain it just because I'm here. So let me think about it like this. You come across a house that's been lit on fire. You suspect arson. You're not sure. Could have been a lightning bolt. Could have been an electrical fire. But I mean, this thing is really cooking. And somebody asks you, what was the cause of the fire? And you respond, oxygen. Oxygen. Now, is oxygen a necessary condition for that fire? Yes, it's a necessary condition. No oxygen, no fire. But a necessary condition is not a causal explanation. Something lit that on fire, and those are not the same. So while it's true that if I was dead, I wouldn't be looking at the fine-tuning, it is not true that that explains the fine-tuning at all. Not at all. Not even close to an explanation. John Leslie has still given the best illustration on this. This was back in 1982. He's a philosopher, and he says, imagine that you're standing up in some kind of a civil war, and they finally catch you, and you're a prisoner of war, and they say, tomorrow we're going to execute you, and we're going to have 100 trained marksmen aiming their rifles right at your head and your heart. And so they stand you up in front of the wall, and they blindfold you, and they tie your hands behind your back, and you hear the commander of the enemy army scream out in a loud voice, ready, men, aim, fire! And you just hear just the cacophony of rifles, and you're sitting there, and then all of a sudden, the commander comes up, takes your blindfold off, cuts your cord loose. You're not touched. Now, you look back at the wall, there's a perfect James Rochford silhouette of you on that wall, or me on that wall. What? And the commander grabs you by the scruff of the neck, throws you back in your prison cell. What would you think about that? Well, you're pacing all night. You're thinking to yourself, okay, all right. Maybe my comrades put blanks in the guns. Maybe that was it. That explains. No, there was a silhouette of guns. No, wasn't it? Okay, maybe they all missed on purpose because they wanted to see me wet my pants, which I did. Right? Okay, no, I can't explain it. Why would they do that? Maybe it was my comrades bribed these people. Maybe the marksmen were all drunk and they couldn't see straight when they went to shoot. And just then your cellmate speaks up and he says, hey, buddy, it's getting late. And if one of those marksmen shot you in the head, you wouldn't be here to be surprised about it. So stop worrying about it and go to sleep. Would you be able to sleep that night? Is it true that if I was dead, I wouldn't be surprised at the incredibly improbable? Yeah, it's true. I wouldn't be surprised. The fact that I'm here and living means that I need to explain what happened. Another way to put this is a little bit simpler. You're hanging out with your friend and you're playing poker for $100 a hand, which is really wise advice, by the way. You should do that a lot. Gamble $100 a hand in poker. You should do that frequently. Anyways, you're playing for $100 a hand, and your friend deals himself 10 royal flushes in a row. One royal flush is the odds of 1 in 650,000. 1 in 650,000. And he does it 10 times. Now, you get up and he's taking you for, if my math is correct, $1,000. And you grab him by the lapel. You reach back to slug him right in the nose. And your buddy, he says this to you. He says, whoa, wait a minute, hold on a second. Let's be reasonable here, man. If I didn't get those 10 royal flushes in a row, then you wouldn't be surprised about it. The only reason you want to punch me is because the improbable happened. But if the improbable didn't happen, you wouldn't be punching me right now. That's true. If the improbable didn't happen, I wouldn't be punching you right now. But the improbable did happen, and we need to explain it. So, in other words, if we use this approach right here to explain the improbability of fine-tuning, this doesn't just explain this improbability, it explains all probability theory away. You can never again say, I think they fixed the lottery. I think they fixed that game of the Celtics and the Warriors in the finals. I think that this happened. I think that you can never again say anything improbable has ever happened because you're holding to the weak anthropic principle. That if it didn't happen, then you wouldn't be surprised about it.